How long have you been at Texas now?
This will be my 27th fall.
It's incredible.
27.
Which is, I don't know.
And strength coach years, that's over 100. I think
That
it's
should be a badge of shame.
Yeah, I don't know.
No.
You're stupid enough to stay in this career.
Welcome to Coach 'em Up. I'm joined here, as always, with Zack Zillner. And today we are super fortunate to have Donnie Maib. Donnie, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you guys for having me on. Excited to be with you today.
Yeah, I'm going to just lead the show with this, actually. I was doing due diligence. Obviously, I've been to the Texas Performance Summits. I've heard you speak before. And I was doing some Googling. And now maybe Wikipedia has this wrong, but did you get you're an art major?
I am. Drawing and painting.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
So were you just like a master on the whiteboard? Was that?
No. So the backstory on this was, when I got to college, none of my parents graduated from college. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know what to do. And I met with, back then, they didn't have all this career education kind of stuff. So I met with a counselor and she didn't have a clue in college.
Like, sign up, whatever.
And so
you like.
I was like, Dad, what did you do?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I was into art. I'm like, I think let's do what Dad did.
That sounds good.
With no direction. And then I actually ended up trying to get out of it later on, but I was too far in for my degree.
Too committed.
And so I had to finish the mission. So, but I've got funny stories. When you walk into an art room with the first day you always walk in, you just have a syllabus, or not a syllabus, you have your schedule. And I would always walk in dressed like a football player because I play ball still. And everybody like, are you looking for the education department? Because that's on the other side of campus. And I'd pull out my little thing and say, no, I'm looking for Color Theory 201. And they would just be like, what? And they would just like, yeah.
The biggest artist they've ever had.
Yeah, they're like, this is the right class. So true, yeah.
So you mentioned playing, and where did you?
University of Georgia.
Awesome. Okay, and you played there. What position?
Defensive line. Played with Bill Goldberg.
Oh man, incredible. Yeah. How cool is that?
Yeah, I got some stories on that. Probably not
podcast appropriate.
Podcast appropriate. But.
Well, I in light of guests we've had in the past, they're probably appropriate for this podcast.
Okay.
But yeah. Was football your main sport your whole life growing up, or?
Actually, no. So my dad played football, University of Oklahoma. We forgive him for that.
It's a tough one.
But so I grew up my whole life hearing about how great the Sooners were, and I went to their summer camps. But before that, I actually played baseball, and that was my main sport. And my mom and dad divorced when I was really young, and I missed tryouts I think it was for Little League, or I can't remember. It's been so long, and I had to get out of baseball and figure out what to do next. And figured my dad played football, so I'd give it a shot, and actually being really good at it. So
it's good you missed that tryout.
Yeah, seriously.
I know, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's pretty incredible to just like give it a shot, and then you end up playing football for the University of Georgia. That's pretty awesome.
Back then though, it's so different. Coaching back then, they would take masses of kids in, and they would just try to destroy you.
Oh, I see.
And if you survive boot camp, you're on the team. So if you just don't quit, you're good. And so they didn't have the, all the restrictions and stuff back then. And so that's kind of how I made it. Just had to kind of survival of the fittest.
Man, I would have killed it back then. Shoot.
That's how they did it.
Now you have to be athletic.
Right. You can't just suffer
and
through
the
pain.
kids can't text their parents after the workout.
They got to write a letter or something.
Right.
Write a letter.
So Georgia, you're studying art and everything. When did the idea of wanting to be a coach pop into your head?
So crazy how this works in life sometimes. Sometimes I like to say, sometimes the path, you don't pick your path, it picks you. And this is kind of what happened to me, right? And so when I was training, my junior, I had really hit a plateau in football, performance-wise. Back then, strength coaching was still not a thing like it is today. It's a big industry. Back then, it was just kind of in the very kind of birthing stages of it, pioneering. We had an old school strength coach, John Casey, who was worked in the steel mills in Pennsylvania. And so he was our strength coach.
Nice.
And he prided himself in getting all the equipment made by some guy there in Athens in a welder shop. The equipment was trash. You would not use
All
it
of it's
today.
homemade.
Barbells that don't
Sorry, Coach.
rotate.
The equipment was
If
trash.
you ever hear this, it was terrible. True story, in our weight room, Zach, you could not have one mirror. He hated mirrors. So it was 0 mirrors.
Yeah.
And no music on. My whole career
Whoa.
at Georgia, we snuck and got the stereo on one morning, and he went off on us.
Yeah.
He goes, I want to hear the sound of weights clanging. And we never listened to music.
I need to bring that back. So when kids complain now, like, I want this certain radio station on,
Come to
you
my
let
life.
them know? Yeah.
And so I end up going back. I ended up being like 270 plus pounds. I benched over 500, but I couldn't.
my God,
I
Donnie.
couldn't move this little bitty tiny homemade sled they had.
Mm-hmm.
We would come off and strike this sled, and I couldn't hit it and move it. I couldn't get up in there and move my feet. And my coach would go. He would shame me and how much you bench again, Maib? And I'd be like 500, and he'd be like, and this guy Mike Steele from Kansas.
Tough guys.
Yeah, Zach, he only benched 275,
Checks out.
but he could move this sled like there was no, like it was a lightning speed fast. I'm like, why can I not do this? And so we ended up having a bad year my sophomore year, and I go and train in Murfreesboro, Tennessee,
Here we go.
Middle Tennessee State University with Doc Grease. And that summer, I snatched, clean, jump, plyoed, all the stuff we know today that works. Speed strength training is Bulgarian methods, and had an incredible camp. Ran a 4.840. The sled was no problem. Now I could move it real fast. My bench went down a little bit, squat went down, but just adjusted some of the adaptations. That summer, Doc said, hey, what do you want to do for a living? And I was like, man, I'm going NFL. I just kind of brushed him off. And he goes, if you ever want to be a strength coach, I think you'd be a pretty good one. I'll help you get in. And so I just brushed him off, Tim, and I blew my knee going into that my senior year and a half later. And I remembered that conversation, and then I followed up with him like, hey, I think I'd like to try this because I don't see myself in a suit and tie carrying a briefcase. I love
Right.
the weight room because we'd work out for hours, and then followed him to Colorado. That's kind of how.
Well,
No
benching
way.
500 pounds, you probably wouldn't have fit in a damn suit,
Yeah.
Donnie.
I
Jeez.
know, right?
Take out a loan to get a custom suit.
Seriously.
It was crazy how it all came about. That season, about a year and a half, 2 years of trying to figure out what I was going to do. But yeah,
And how long were you in Boulder?
got there January of '94. So I graduated December of '93. We got my art degree, and packed up my Bronco 2
Nice.
and moved all the way. I couldn't even see out the back window, all the way up there, and lived with Doc for about a month, '94, and then left there left there January of '98 and moved to Austin. Drove straight down to Austin, parked my car we lived in a hotel for about a month, and then started at Texas.
Dang. So before that, you're just at Colorado, you're just with football?
Yeah, the way it worked back then, I was a paid intern, 6-month internship. It lapsed. I didn't have a job, was bouncing checks left and right, had no money, wasn't working side gigs. I was a young coach. I thought I was going to have to move back home to Tennessee because that position ended. He had to go fight for me to get a part-time position.
Wow.
So for the next year and a half, I'm part-time, working 80 hours a week.
Yeah. I get it.
Part-time. And so many stories on that, living in a shoebox. My girlfriend at the time, who becomes my wife, Karen, we're just barely, she's making more money than me working in Denver without a degree. And for the next year and a half, so 2 years I was part-time, year and a half. So 6-month internship, year and a half, part-time, 2 years before I become full-time assistant in Colorado. So.
And then what brought you to the great state of Texas? How'd that opportunity rise?
Literally, one of my really good friends, Dave Plettle, who works at Florida State still with women's basketball, he knew Mad Dog because Mad Dog was working at Colorado. They were pretty close. He hired Dave at Texas. Right when he hired Dave, he says, hey, there's another good coach back at Colorado. He's interested. So I literally go into we were in a condo, Zach, go into this back room, interview on the phone. I don't take a trip out here and look at anything. I literally have so Dave's position is being offered to me about 44,000, and this is in 97.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got that offer, or I've got an offer to be the bottom rung assistant at Texas, make it 18,000. So you have to pick one. I took the Texas job on the phone, never drove to see it, and drove all the way here by myself at the time and checked in.
Dang, that's wild.
How long have you been at Texas now?
This will be my 27th fall.
It's incredible.
27.
Which is, I don't know.
And strength coach years, that's over 100.
I know.
Yes.
I don't know if is that like
I think
that
it's
should be a badge of shame.
Yeah, I don't know.
No. No, they'll find
You're
any.
stupid enough to stay in this career. Oh, great.
You know,
Thanks.
I just want to jump back a little bit because you said something and it got my wheels turning, and I feel like this is for a lot of coaches or people who end up becoming coaches or teachers or leader in leadership positions. There's an event typically, or someone in your case, like the strength coach you went and worked with in Murfreesboro.
Yeah.
But you're real strong, you're capable, but you're seeing other people who aren't as strong as you essentially be able to move better than you, right?
Oh, wait.
And then you have this totally like transformative experience. At that time, were you thinking that this was going to impact your life in a major way, or were you just happy you got gains? I mean,
yeah, I think, at the time, you don't see the future. You just see, I have a big goal. I want to play in NFL.
yeah.
Well, first, I want to start at Georgia, which I did that year. I had started 11 games, had a great season. And then, as a football player, like you got to have a good season. You got to kind of stack some film.
Yep.
And so I knew that that's what I needed to do. And finally getting quicker and faster and performing better, I was like, I've discovered like the cheat code to performance for a guy like myself that loved the weight room. Because I needed an edge. You're going against that junior year, we played Clemson in Athens. We ended up winning that night. They averaged at the time, this is in 91, they were over 300 pounds. I was weighing in at 260.
Whoa.
And so you needed to have an advantage, an edge, if you were going to get down there with the big boys. And so I found a cheat code that I could kind of level the playing field, so to speak, for my career. I was excited.
Those kind of experiences for me where I'm doing one thing a certain way and I'm giving it all I got, and then something else happens and it completely disrupts my way of thinking. I'm just interested to know, did that impact the way you coached and the way you took in training information for, I guess the rest of your career? Was that like perhaps a spark for that?
Yeah, it's kind of like, what's the saying? I'm blanking on it from Stephen Covey, but it just changes the way you view everything, right? Because I had a really, really strong foundation of just basic strength training and hypertrophy. I'd had a guy train me for a year and a half, 2 years. The guy's name was Coleman. They're in Athens. I worked out in Go's Gym. So I trained with the team. Now to go train on my own, it goes gym with this bodybuilder named Coleman. I was strong, right? I could squat a ton. There was nobody on that team during that era that could step in a squat rack with me or bench. Like I could do anything we did in the weight room. I was tops. And so I had a strong conviction that this got me to the field.
Yeah.
And so,
that's what you had to keep doing.
But now you're hitting a wall and going, why am I hitting a wall and not my performance is actually going down? And we didn't have all the research and the force plates, and so I'm like, something's wrong. I've gotten lost on this path. And I used to talk bad about all that kind of snatches and cleans and like, what is that stuff, man?
Was that like a desperation moment where you're like, screw it, I'll try, Yeah,
it was kind of a deal. It was just really kind of like one of those opportunities. My dad was an insurance salesman, and he knows no stranger. He ran into Doc Crease at some event in Nashville, and they connected.
I was just about to ask, how the hell did this happen?
My dad was, literally knew no strangers, and he loved football. And once he connected with Doc, he's like, hey, you're going to be home for a month, because we didn't go to a bowl game in 1990. We got destroyed that. We went 4-7. And he's like, look, I got a training session set up with you, with Doc. I want you to go talk to him, see what's going on, just kind of hear him out. And I was kind of like, I don't know about this stuff, Dad. Like, what do you know? My dad don't ever work out. He's a big old dude out of shape. And I'm like, I'm home for a month. Let's give it a shot. So I did, went and tried it. And I was like, he sold me.
God, that's incredible, man.
We went and trained with him. It was just me. I went and spent probably 2 or 3 hours in this small like weight room down on campus in Murfreesboro for about 2 or 3 hours. No air conditioning, basement. And I was like, dude, I'm in. And I went old school Rocky. We moved. So that was December of 90. So summer of 91, me, our starting center, and his buddy from California, we moved to Murfreesboro for 6 weeks, and we literally sleep on the floor in an apartment, no bed, and we train 3 times a day there in Murfreesboro.
Sounds awesome.
That sounds so. I'm like getting the hype. I'm like ready to run through a wall listening to this story.
I didn't work a job. I maxed out credit cards, trained my rear end off.
Yes.
And showed up in camp. Back then we had all these endurance tests. Destroyed them. Didn't even train for them because all I did was train for power and speed.
Yeah.
Endurance, right? Speed endurance, power endurance. Destroyed it was like 4 550s a lap and 100. Destroyed that. My body fat was under 10%, ran a 4.840.
Jesus,
and all we did was train for power
When you
and
came
speed.
back, where your coach was like, what happened?
They were so mad I didn't stay that summer to train.
Right. I bet.
Back then you had to.
Yeah.
And they thought I was going to be out of shape and not ready. And I'll never forget my coach. We're in film. He goes, Maib is the only one in camp that's doing everything we're asking him to do right now.
Out there so pissed.
Oh yeah.
The one guy that's not there.
Well, I figured out at this time of my career, I was a Tennessee boy. They always started Georgia boys in front of you.
Yeah.
But I knew that coaches like their jobs and the checks they get. So I knew if I got so good that I had to create a gap between me and the second team that there's no way they won't play me because they like their jobs.
Yeah.
And that's all I did. That's my goal. I'm gonna get so good if they don't play me, they'll lose their job. And that was my mentality. So it worked out.
That's awesome. I like that. I'd be so mad as a coach if one of our kids went home and they're like, well, wait till she gets back, and then she's just killing everybody.
Literally in better shape than everybody.
Do I need to get my resume ready? Or
yeah, exactly. What was that name of the coach you had worked with there in that garage in Murfreesboro?
The Coach 'em Up podcast is sponsored by Squat Wedgies. Tim, what are squat wedgies?
Squat wedgies are an adjustable squat wedge, 7, 13, and 20 degrees.
It's big enough to elevate your whole foot and not just your heel.
Because it's rubber, it doesn't slide on surfaces.
It's 22 pounds, so it's durable and stable enough for even your biggest athletes.
There's a 90-day risk-free trial. The shipping is free, and
get 15% off squat wedgies with our discount code CoachEmUp15.
Coach 'em Up 15 for 15% off of the best squat wedge on the planet. Coach 'em Up is proud to be sponsored by Plyomat. Plyomat is a jump mat that measures ground contact times, vertical jump height, and reactive strength index.
Plyomat's trusted by over 750 coaches in 25 different countries.
It's something that you can use in training day in and day out to give immediate feedback and drive output and intent.
Plyomat's always in stock. When you order your Plyomat, you can get it within 1 to 3 business days and start your training immediately.
If you get a group of athletes challenging each other to jump higher, get off the ground quicker, it transforms that workout into a highly competitive, highly potent stimulus.
If you would like access to the best jump mat on the planet, use CoachEmUp5 to get 5% off at checkout.
Again, code CoachEmUp5 for 5% off. Come jump with us, get a Plyomat.
So let's fast forward a little bit. Let's get into what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm obviously been at Texas a while now, director of Olympic sports, but I directly oversee day-to-day women's volleyball and men's tennis. I think it's gotten Zack to where I'm like, I was thinking I've got 20 plus years with volleyball, which is crazy.
The volleyball OG.
Yeah. And then about the same, similar for men's tennis. So, but kind of works out well. 2 overhead sports. Their seasons are kind of opposite. Volleyball is a fall sport. Tennis is a spring sport. But you see a lot of similar patterns and kind of needs with those male and female. But yeah, still doing that. We have a podcast we run too, the team behind the team. So I help kind of oversee and run that. We do it once a month. We have our clinic still that Coach Craig kind of directs. We got that. And then what else? Oh, I wrote that book recently and got a second one coming out. So definitely not bored. Got a lot going on.
Can we name drop the book for people who?
Yeah, so the first book came out last November. It's called The Secret Sauce of Leadership, and it's just a collection of stories and quick little one-liners on how to be a better leader, and not as a coach, but just in life in general. And so then that one came out in November. The follow-up will be out this October.
You got a working title for number 2 yet?
It's called The 2 Buckets of Leadership.
Nice.
And it's more about leading teams, strategic planning, vision casting, hiring people, firing people, dealing with problems. A little bit more in the weeds of that kind of stuff, but similar kind of format.
I kind of want to go into training and then circle back to the book. Yeah. Because I got a bunch of leadership and what we were talking about off camera, the hiring and firing process.
Yeah, whatever you got, let's go.
So let's talk about volleyball. I've seen them train. Donnie would come over every Friday the last couple summers, and his athletes would come work out in our basketball gym. And I remember the first time they came through, you're thinking like volleyball, like probably not very strong or whatever. And dude, they get after it. Right. And I think there's a difference between, like, we've talked about this before, like teams that are trying to win conference versus you guys that are always trying to win a national championship. Can you kind of walk us through like the summer, what it kind of looks like for you guys, how long you guys train, and then kind of go into the weeks and days of how you do everything?
Yeah, so to your point, summer block is short. It's 4.5, it's about 5 weeks roughly, so it's not long. Summer session 1, some volleyball programs go summer session 2. We do the opposite. So they're at home having some downtime right now. And my philosophy on volleyball has changed pretty significantly, I think, over the years, meaning we get such high-level recruits. I think this class coming in spring, coming up here in January of 25 is #1 class in the country. So these kids are the best of the best in the nation. So
can you name like what that means? I don't think the person at home understands what that means. Like you have like All-Americans for their state, you have Olympians, like what other stuff do you guys have?
Yeah, like right now, one of our freshmen, she'll play and start for us this year more likely, Aiden. She was Gatorade Player of the Year, a middle blocker. She's 6'4", 6'5". Wow. And just super talented. And so you get these kids coming in and everybody wants them. And so I think one of the stories, you can probably relate to this, both of you guys. We had Julianne Fawcett. She's an alumni. Her dad played in NFL, was big old joke, played linebacker, played at Maryland. And when she got here, she was freak of an athlete. I mean, coming from her dad. And I would train her like I've done all other volleyball players. We do a lot of volume, move weight. And I'll never forget, after her freshman year, coach comes in and goes, "Hey, what have you been doing with her? She can't jump anymore." I'm like, "What?" And she was cleaning like, Zack, from the ground. She was hitting like 90 kilos.
Sheesh.
I mean, she's a beast.
Yeah.
But she was getting real thick.
Yeah.
A lot of hypertrophy, just her body type, And at the time, we weren't testing all these athletes. Just back, that was old school. Back in like 07, 08, where you're just like, let's move weight. If we can move weight, there was no velocity base. I think it was just starting to come on the scene. You're good. You look at the numbers, you test the vert,
went up, we're good.
Squat clean went up, bench went up, we're good, old school, right? And so that's when I had to really start changing kind of some of the lens of like what makes a good volleyball player. And I'll never forget, like I changed her whole program and we weren't lifting heavy anymore. We're more kind of doing more kind of clusters and speed, and she lost weight but was jumping again. And coach was happy. Her dad was so mad at me.
She wasn't as strong.
Yeah, she's not as strong. So I'm like, dude, I don't care.
You need to be good at volleyball or lifting.
You can be mad at me.
Yeah.
Jared's not.
We're good.
Right, that's
we're
right.
good.
Yeah, he can't get you fired, right? Yeah.
So that was when I knew, like, hey, something's got to. So I started kind of seeing these like categories. Like Jen Doris was a 6'5" middle blocker that if she didn't lift 3 or 4 times a week, she was a string bean, like a bean pole. She needed to lift a lot to keep mass on. Julie needed a lot less. And so we started seeing these buckets of needs and training. And so that kind of changed for me of the lens of, what we should look through.
And then what are some different, because I've seen one of your sessions and there's like the main focus for the lift, and then you have like 3 people doing this, 3 different people doing this, like all these different varieties of the lift. What kind of goes into your decision-making process with that?
There's 2 paths for me in the way I look and organize it. So I've got position-specific sheets with no limitations. Setters, outside hitters, middle blockers, and I call them littles or DSs. And so those are the 4 main sheets. Probably once you get through that, then I start to categorize. Like if again, she's graduated, so we can talk about her a little bit. Like an Asia O'Neill's had some surgeries. Like she can't have certain bars hit her on her like sternum and stuff because of some of the surgeries she's had. So you start to categorize and specialize some of your programming for athletes like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've had even like recently, we've had, the transfer portal has shaken things up. And one of the feedback things I hear is some of our athletes go to different schools and everybody's on the same sheet. And so I just don't program like that anymore. I used to. I mean, I'll be honest, that's how I used to do it. But now I just can't with, whether it's from surgeries or maybe different injuries they've had or different limitations, I'll program differently. I mean, for example, one of the common things you got to watch with volleyball is lower back, right? If somebody has a lower back problem, I don't care if it's a DS, if it's a setter or a hitter, they can't move. It's a power sport. If you can't jump, rotate, and open your shoulders,
you're in trouble.
So you've got to change some of your programming to. We still need to be powerful and explosive. So maybe we're not doing cleans from the floor or from the blocks. Maybe I'm using a plyo press. Or we're doing squat jumps, or we're doing more ISO work or something. Maybe I'm potentiating that with another lift that's easier on their back and hips. And so I've had to change just some of the exercise selection based off some of the restrictions I have. So again, 4 main sheets. Then I start to specialize based off, if they have a lower back, a hip, a knee, if they've had a surgery. We've had a couple girls had, shoulder repair. So I have to kind of program around that. You can't put a bar on that right away. Mm-hmm. And so still looking through the same lens, still looking for chasing the same goal, but the way I'm skinning the cat's different.
Do you mentioned kind of different athletes responding differently and what might be precisely what the doctor ordered in terms of like improving max strength for one athlete and then another one, and the example you use, just getting slower and not being able to jump as high. Mm. Do you have a way that you classify athletes, or is it just one of those things like as you start to get feedback, you start to make those decisions? I guess what I'm asking is, are you proactive in that decision making with an athlete? Do you have a way to identify how someone's going to adapt, or do you just change when you get information coming in based on how they?
Yeah, again, going back and I have really, if I think to simplify it, because I keep it real simple, because I have like 10 different sheets. And so my thing is always what you'll see with force plate testing, you'll see somebody who's really bilaterally powerful, which was me in college. I was really good off 2 legs because I squatted, I cleaned, and I pulled. And you really do. A lot of your younger athletes need that foundation. But I've noticed around that 2.5 year mark, we had one of our tennis guys, even he's about 2.5, 3 years in, super strong bilaterally, needed a lot of single leg work. I mean, I've seen it with, we'll get some of these older girls coming in out of the portal, really good off 2 feet, really weak off 1 leg. So you'll see, you kind of got to get away from a lot of that bilateral, like squatting. They're so good at it. I mean, again, one of our kids, you would know who it would be, but super powerful off 2 legs, but just need a lot of single leg work. And they don't like it. Kids don't like single leg. It's hard.
Sucks.
Yeah, especially if it's not what you're good at.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
Absolutely.
If I could, to your question, with the age range we work with in the sport that I'm in, the one deficit you see over and over again is single leg work. I mean, they are so bilaterally, most of them proficient.
I guess it makes sense. All your jumps in volleyball is a 2-footed jump. It's a 2-foot plant.
Yeah.
I don't know. Y'all probably get this question a lot. If you could just pick one exercise, what would you do? It's not clean anymore. It's not squat. It's probably like I do a lot of single leg work. If I had to do one exercise for big return, bang for the buck, low risk, low impact, single leg work all day long with these kids.
I got a question. Let's say this was like a European model where you're the head strength coach for high school into college. What were some things, I know high school coaches at home are going to ask, like, what are things that I can prepare my athletes for the next level? What would you really concentrate on with that younger, like 14 to 18-year-old population?
Yeah, great question. I think you go back to what I was saying earlier. They need a ton of volume, like just basics. They don't need to do, they need more of the bilateral. I always say the big five, right? You need to pull, you need to push, you need to hinge, you need to carry, you need to brace, And so those five, they need a ton of volume of that. Most kids don't know how to hinge.
I see it all the time.
And
I see it with pro guys.
And if you just teach a kid how to hinge properly, they're going to move. They're going to change direction better. They're going to jump smoother and going to land softer. They're going to be able to get low and they're change of direction better. Just being able to hinge, how to bend their hips and use their post chain. So I would say, Zach, a lot of this basics, and I would say even it's not so much about the weight they're moving. I had a dialogue even last week with it was an administrator in high school, and the high school coaches got them maxing out all the time. I'm like, for what?
We don't even max out.
You don't need.
Yeah.
I'm not against maxing out if you want to pick a day or two out of the year and have a big hype session and get the energy going but the risk of that is so high with like back problems and stuff or something getting.
I think people forget like maxing out in itself as a skill. Like its entire sport's powerlifting. Like that's a skill in itself. So it's like, for me, unless we're really doing like a bunch of doubles and singles all the time, like if I put the second you jump that extra weight or whatever, the athletes are like, oh my God, what's happening?
Here's the way another simple way, and I'm not good at math, but I'm gonna do my best here. When I worked for Doc, he literally took me aside one day and he said, let me just do this with you. And every workout we would do, we would track volume, not tonnage, just volume. And one day we would, a week worth of volume, look at your sets and reps you do on all those, and look at the number of exercises. If you track that volume week after week and you play somebody that's not done that volume, you've got an advantage. You could even go more specific and track tonnage. We go back to, let's say let's just keep it simple, right? If you go 5 sets of 5, right, that's 25 reps, right? So if you do 5 reps at, let's say, 100 pounds, what's the tonnage on that? It's 500 pounds, right?
Yeah.
So 5 reps. So 500 pounds, you do 5 sets times what?
2,500.
So what's that? Is that 2,500?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you do 2,500 just for that, and you do that week after week. You keep getting stronger at that. Like the volume and tonnage that you've done for a high school kid. Again, we're not maxing out. It's not sexy. It's not great on Instagram, but you're going to be so much further ahead of kids. And I met with some high school coaches not long ago trying to explain to them, they almost they don't know that they don't know. And they try to insert all this stuff in there that doesn't really help them, and you end up going backwards.
Trying to do 100 things instead of mastering 2
and
or 3 things.
Less is more.
The basics, right?
Yeah.
And just keep. Here's the way. Another simple way. Doc said, "How do you get stronger?" One day, and I go, "Is that a trick question? Like I don't know." and Dan Paff said the same thing. Who works with all this. We make it so much more complicated than we should. So Doc's like, here's how you get stronger. He grabbed a grease board and a marker, and he just drew like a figure 8. I was like, infinity? I'm like, I'm
forever.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm a D line, like too many shots to the head. He took that marker and he went over it again, and it got a little bigger.
Yeah.
And he took it again, and he just kept going over it. And after about 8 to 10 to 12, man, that figure 8 is huge. He goes, you need to do the same thing, keep doing it again and again, and keep adding weight and volume, getting really proficient at it. Paff said the same thing. And just what's your system? What exercise are you doing? And add sets, reps, volume, get stronger, do that. For high school kids, that's all they need.
That's what I think is so funny. Like people will ask, like if you send them a program or whatever, they're like, we're squatting, it has back squat every every Tuesday for 8 weeks. It's like, did you get better at it? Are you still getting better? Well, yeah. When are we going to change it? Well, until you quit getting stronger.
When it stops
if it's
working.
still working.
Dude.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And the way Doc would do it, Zach, we would literally do a form of a squat. Every do a back squat Monday, do a front squat Tuesday, do a split squat Thursday, and do another back squat or variation of back squat on Friday. You're still squatting every day. You're getting that dose, but the volume's going up. And you're getting stronger. You're putting on mass, and you're becoming a better athlete.
What about the conditioning side for volleyball? I know there's some people who are like heavy on the conditioning. Some people, just do open gym. What are your thoughts with volleyball conditioning at your level?
This has changed for me too drastically, and I'll kind of give some of my thought behind it. And just really, it's more personal experience. You ever have those moments as a coach, right? You're just like, why am I doing this? This is not working.
Yes.
And there's one summer, we were doing conditioning, we were running, and I look over, and nobody got on me or said nothing to me. I got about 4 girls that can't run because they're banged up lower extremity, shin, knee, ankle. So they're on the shelf, and I'm doing all this setting up so they can do stuff. I got
Bikes,
some girls that can run, and I got some on the bike.
Yeah.
I'm like,
what am I doing?
This is not working.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. They don't like it. It's hard to manage. And so I just stopped doing it. And so I've gotten to where what I do now, you do need to condition. I'm more, for me, and here's why. So I have 4 daughters that play club volleyball. And if you've been in that arena, which I have, you play on top of concrete. And you literally play 3 matches a day for 3 to 4 days in a row.
It's pretty crazy.
So think about a season. So high school volleyball, you go from August to November. Club starts November. You go all the way through June. You take a couple weeks off and you start over again. So there's never a break for them. So when you get your number 1 ranked class coming in, guess what the last thing they need? They don't need impact.
Yeah.
They've not had a break for 4 plus 5 years. They've been on concrete. So for me to get them on a track and run them, or for me to get them on do linear speed or whatever, a lot of change of direction, it's going to blow them up. And so I've had to go more to, you've seen some of it, Zach. We're twice a week in the sand. Guess what? In sand, guess what happens? Everybody can run.
Yeah.
Nobody is out. So I don't do that just for Instagram, because we can't video our stuff anyway, but it's literally to unload their shins and their ankles so I can actually run them as a team and push them physically. So we'll go sand on Monday, Thursdays in the summer, and then we'll go, I think Tuesday we do ramps. Every once in a while, we get a kid that can't do ramps. But even if you can do ramps, we can still do GPP work and just modify, just bring some of the intensity down. So we're still good there. And then Wednesdays, we'll do some kind of metabolic circuit where it's low impact, but we're still crushing them. And then Fridays, I do stadium work because if you do Friday stadium, it's really everybody can either walk or run on that. So everybody's doing it. So I throw a weighted vest on if you got to walk. But
Nice.
If you can't, we're running. Every once in a while, we'll put someone on a bike, but it's really rare. I mean, this summer, it was one of our most physical summers, and everybody did everything. And so we increased volume and intensity every week, and we pushed them. So it was good. So I've had to change kind of my approach on it over the years.
Yeah, what's with injuries and stuff, what are kind of the most common things you see? And then what do you do on your end to modify things? And how much does the athletic trainer help with that kind of stuff?
Yeah, great question. I think, it varies, but, depending on, if you're in season, you're going to see jumpers knee a lot of tendonitis in the patella. Oh, yeah. Just from practice and landing.
Do you just tell them to rub dirt on it? Do you have any protocols for them, or what do you got?
No, that doesn't go well usually with the head coach.
Yeah.
Like that. I wish that would.
A lot of isometrics coming in hot, I'd imagine.
Yeah, our athletic trainer, we've worked together for so long. I call her my work wife, Deanne. Deanne.
She's really good.
She knows. Her and I have worked together so well. We have protocols. We know our lanes that we should run in and where we should kind of cross over. So right away, we're going to change some more eccentrics. We're going to get out of the concentric phase of lifting because we just do so much of that on court. And so a lot of eccentrics where you're just lowering and then you'll unload coming up. So that will go, if it's too hot, we'll do isos in different modified ranges. because we've got some Kaiser equipment we use for some of that. So I'm going to floss temper that tissue. She's going to calm it down with some stuff she's going to do, whether it's needling. We're going to change some of the programming on exercise selection. We may modify some of the depth, change some of the eccentrics and variations of that. And then they'll, biggest thing, we want them to be able to, I want them to not miss practice.
Yeah.
If they can keep practicing and we can kind of calm that down pretty quick, we usually, if we get on the top of it pretty quick and on the front end, we can usually head it off and get, keep them going. I mean, we had, nobody knows this last year. One of our starting athletes had a really pretty tough, and I can't talk about it on here, restriction that I had to do a lot of modifications from, not bilaterally loading her, had to go a lot of stuff from the ground, like hip extension up the ground, ISO work from modified ranges. Mm-hmm. What else did we do? A lot of flossing, soft tissue work, kind of mixed in with that, and then some other stuff in the training room. So pieces from my end, pieces with the trainer, meeting with the doctor, changing practices with our catapult, like jump loads, and getting her kind of healthy again to be ready to play for a championship. And she got healthy.
So with that exercise selection, like let's say our main goal, like it's back squat day, and I'm your best player and I have a bad case of jumper's knee, and I come into you and, hey coach, like my knee's flaring up. What are the steps you go into making that decision for picking a new exercise or, maybe scrapping the lift altogether?
Yeah, it's a series of questions. I'll be like, hey, where does it hurt? Like, show me where it lights up. Mm-hmm. If we can train in the range that doesn't hurt. So let's say it's a jumper's knee. Okay, we're going to train some eccentrics where you don't feel it. And then I'm going to come in and supplement some TKEs. So we're going to go in, we're going to first and foremost, we're going to release tissue first. We're going to temper it with a pain pill, 40 pounds, do some gun work, eccentrics, come in the back end, do some TKEs, backload that with some posterior chain and TKEs, and then get blood flow in there.
Yeah.
And then once we do that, hey, how's that feel? They feel walking out there feeling great for practice. That's a big win for us today. If that responds well in practice and they can go longer, then we just keep supplementing that as we go. But that's what I would do. It starts with just a lot of collaboration with the athlete. Hey, where's this hurt? What range of motion? Try that. Oh, that feels good. And then kind of go from there. Because sometimes it's like, Dan Paff used to always tell me, you got to be a detective a little bit. You got to ask questions, try things. You have your arsenal of tools that you can use, and not just think like, don't be a purist. Mm-hmm. Be more of a generalist. You have to be a little bit of like an athletic trainer, a therapist, a strength coach, a psychologist, and then a sport coach. You have to kind of have all these cards of what you're going to have in front of you when you're talking to this athlete. So you have to educate them a little bit too, ask questions, be a detective, and then prescribe stuff and tell them why you're doing it. I also have a background in massage therapy, so I can also...
Oh, wow.
I'll work with her. Again, this is not normal. I mean, there's some things I'll do flossing, tempering. I'll do some therapy on them to supplement some of the stuff I'm doing, dry needling, whatever, and get them back on court. So I've got a big
toolbox.
Man,
yeah, big.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really good with shoulders, backs, hips, knees, and ankles.
Well, I got a shoulder. I don't know if you got time after the show.
I can
do a workshop.
So I'm really good with chronic stuff. Any acute stuff, I don't. That's more right. Hey, go see the doc and see what's going on. Mm-hmm. But if it's chronic, which I deal probably 90% of what I deal with, I'm pretty on top of most of that stuff.
We were talking. He mentioned modifications, and it got me. So I trained some volleyball players as well, and one of the things that I ran into early on and frequent was some of the traditional lifts that I would prescribe just did not work for them based on their biomechanics. Just the bone structures, the way they were built. I was trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, and I would just wonder if you have any examples of exercise selection or modification, heel elevation, whatever it may be, where like what are your go-tos with some of those things, and do you have any examples?
I can't remember where I got this from, but this is how I think. It's really just a mindset shift in how you look at athletes. For years, I would try to force an athlete into my program. I stopped doing that. Like, I'm gonna build my program around the athlete, so I'm gonna fit that. And so, prime example, this one year, we had this libero, and no matter what I did, she had lumbar problems. She had probably, I think, 2 to 3 layer disc herniation.
Oof. Dang.
And so nothing I did, anything I did just made it mad. And so coach was mad at me.
Yeah.
Can't you figure it out?
DN was not happy with me. And I was frustrated. Athlete was frustrated.
Sure.
So we literally got to where, and it took a little while. I will never forget. It's one of those moments you kind of like, sometimes your best lessons are through your hardest, failures.
Mm-hmm.
And this kid can't even play in a scrimmage in the spring because of her back. And I'm like, I'm contributing to this.
Mm-hmm.
This is a part where I'm like really frustrated with myself. And I'm starting to feel really bad for this kid. And I'm not being crazy. We're not doing Olympic lifts or nothing, but her back's blown up. I got to figure this out. So I get her back and I'm like, I'd taken a course on band training. I forget the guy's name is Dave Schmitz, I think. He's got a whole Instagram channel, and we brought him in, and we spent a couple of days with him. And bands are a little fluffy. I understand that. So I understand when I'm saying that may, some people are like, I'm not using bands, dude. But I'm gonna tell you what, you get an athlete that can't train. So I started training and using all these bands, and she loved it. And so she could at least train. And then I ended up talking to this one NBA strength coach, Zack, I'm blanking on his name. It'll come to me here after we're done. And the way it works is he calls it the 3 circles. And there's a small circle, there's a medium circle, and there's a large circle. The large circle is for all your athletes with no modifications. Mm-hmm. And there's a big group that fits in that. They can snatch, they can clean, they can squat, they can jump, they can do single leg work, keep going, they can bench. Most of your athletes. Then that medium circle is a group with some modifications. So maybe they can still do Olympics, but they got to do it from a hang position, or they do a tramp bar jump shrug. They can still do some loaded stuff. But then that small circle, you're going to have 1 to 2 athletes in that. And that was this one athlete that you've really got to. And the way it works is your only goal is to expand that athlete circle just a little bit. Never get to the second circle. Just expand that in their career. The medium circle, expand that. The big one. So if you get too far outside that circle, they'll usually get injured in the weight room. That's where we get a bad rap. And so I've just finally, it takes pressure off me. I stopped trying to fit my ego and like I'm training these athletes a certain way, get the athlete healthy so she can perform. She ended up having a really good career. But again, it took me going through some heartache with her and frustration of changing the lens of how I program and lay out plans for these kids.
So how have you gone, like you had to create, I imagine that's tough with that athlete if every time they're coming to you, she's getting hurt. So I'm sure buy-in was probably like minimal if every time go to the weight room, I get hurt. When you were working with football and then transitioned over to volleyball, how did you kind of change the narrative of football strength coach taking over for volleyball? Like obviously we don't want to be like football players. Like how'd you navigate that scene?
Well, I'll tell you this, and it's still a little bit lingers occasionally today, but not as much. But you just kind of gotta take the shots when you come out of that. Oh, he's a football strength coach. He's training them just like football. Oh, and the stigma you get, you're gonna make those girls big,
right?
I'm like, you finally start getting like, you stop getting offended and hurt because then you start realizing. You really don't even know what you're saying.
Yeah.
If you would look at what I'm doing, the sheets, there is no way on this planet Earth that my girls are going to get big doing 30-minute sessions with sets of 3.
Yeah.
Right.
We're doing Olympic lifts, most of them, which makes them leaner. So it just shows you that when they're talking to you, that they literally don't have the knowledge of what we do.
Yeah.
So you almost have to, and I read a book, the book is called To Sell as Human by Dan Pink, and a phenomenal read. It's all a book on human psychology. And what it is today, old school days, when somebody would say they were in sales, let's say, for example, a vacuum cleaner comes to your house, knocks on the door, and they gets out these cards and shows you this $3,000 vacuum. I ain't never seen this vacuum. You guys haven't seen it. And so he's telling you everything it does. And it floats around the room, and it wakes you up in the morning, makes coffee. And like, dude,
Need it.
Sign me up.
Yep.
And that's back then. It was buyer beware because you don't know.
Yeah.
But today, you can Google get on Instagram and you can listen to this podcast and learn. You got coaches and stuff sometimes that know more about stuff than you think they do. So you've got to go in. So I've had to change my philosophy as a leader, and I've got to go in and be more in sales today. I've got to educate them on why we do what we do. I've had to spend more time on that, not being offended or mad at that question. And let me explain to you why we do what we do. And let me explain to you how you should really be training female athletes and the benefits of it. Like if you look at the research today, right? Females need training more than they need in cardio because they need lean mass to be bulletproof.
Yeah.
They need to be resilient. They need to be robust. And if you can look at the menstrual cycles with women, if they train and get more dense, they have a healthier menstrual cycle, which makes them more or less susceptible to ACL injuries. Yeah. So guess what? You should be begging me to train your athletes.
Yeah. You should
not,
make it.
Not knocking me.
I'll put them in a football program, damn it.
Knew what was going on,
Yeah.
you would be giving us raises and applauding us, not throwing darts.
Right.
So to your question, Zach, I've had to take the shots, let some of the education kind of catch up. So now it's more, you've got to be seller beware, not buyer beware as a leader. And so you've got to educate more today and sell more than you ever have.
How do you navigate that? A lot of strength coaches, we get this question all the time of like a sport coach administrator that comes to you with a situation and thinks, they have the solution. How have you gotten better at, keeping your cool, assembling the right information and delivering it in those meetings that aren't, very favorable to you? Basically like the blame game of the strength coach.
I've got two philosophies on this, and
here we go.
One of them I've just kind of developed, and I gotta think how much I'm going to share.
Okay, yeah.
Sure.
So let's go back a little bit. This is where I learned this in football. You learn a lot in the lion's den. You really do. And football is a lion's den if you've never worked in it. Meaning it's intense. It's high pressure, especially at Texas when you lose. They're going to fire everybody when you lose. And so I'll never forget. We're in this meeting one day. We had lost to, I think we lost to like Oklahoma or A&M or something. We're in this meeting with Coach Brown. And it's just a strength staff. And you're not getting called up there for an attaboy.
If strength staff's in a meeting, it's never a good job.
It's not like, we're going to this meeting going, I've never been in these, but I don't know what's going on. But this can't be because we're doing a stellar job right now.
Right.
And so I get in there and Coach Brown was awesome. And at this point, things have been great. And I think we'd really lost to like OU and A&M that year, which at Tech, you don't lose to those, not the same year at least. And that was just the standard and still is. And I'll never forget, he asked this one question. And I want to know why we're losing. And I'm thinking, I'm a Southern country boy.
You're like, it's our passing efficiency, coach. Your inability to execute in the red zone.
Common sense ain't so common, but I'm smart enough to know he knows why we're not losing. Yeah. He's not looking for an answer.
Right.
He's putting heat on us. And so I'm thinking, so this is where I got part of my philosophy from back then when you kind of get in these situations. And it's a proverb. It says this: even a fool, when he's quiet, is considered wise. And I just sit there and I'm like, I am not answering this question because sure enough, if you step out and answer this question, it's not going to go well for you. Sure enough, one of our strength coaches, he jumped out and tried to answer it, and it didn't go well for him. I'm not going to get into what happened, but it did not go well. And from that day forward, I'm like, I've just learned you've kind of got to, there's too many pieces to the puzzle. When you get into this profession, there's a lot of people in administrative roles that have pressure on them, coaches, and there's a lot of conversations that happen before you walk into that meeting.
Yep.
And so you've got to be aware that that's not the time to get hot. That's not the time to blow up. And so you kind of need to take that in, listen. And now there's been times I've half spoken up, but I'm very calculated and careful about what I say and what I say, because you don't know what pieces are floating to the puzzle in that room. And so I think that's been my first approach, is really, the point is you've got to be a better listener than a talker. And you see this in a lot of young coaches, they can talk.
Yeah.
I have literally seen coaches in meetings talk their way out of a job because they don't know when to shut your mouth. Here's what you got to find out. What I've learned, Zach, second piece, ask the other question. Oh, you're going to ask me a question? I'm going to answer it with a question. And again, be that detective, get more perspective from what they're trying to get from you. Then you can kind of shift through some of the information and then provide better information. Because at the end of the day, they're looking out for their best interests. So you got to go in there too with a little bit of a shield up and use some wisdom and tact in there. So
I like that. With you being a director, obviously in more of these meetings and everything, what advice would you give to, an Olympic strength coach that they're an assistant, they've been there for like 10 to 15 years and they're trying to make the jump to a director? What are skills they should start practicing now? And then what will put them in the driver's seat to someday, be in your seat?
Well, it's that old adage. I think I'm going to get this right, but it's called the Peter Principle. You know this, right? Mm-mm. So the Peter Principle is people always get promoted one level above their competency. So let's say, prime example, you're the number one sales person on a sales team of 10. You crush it in sales, and you get promoted to the sales manager.
Yeah.
Well, your competency to be the sales manager is way different than to be the sales leader.
Yep.
I heard this the other day. Like one of the worst things you can do is take your best seller and make him the sales manager because they're no longer doing what they're good at.
Right.
But every company, that's like their default because it makes sense. You're the best seller. Why don't you manage everyone that sells?
Surely you'll also be the best manager.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. I mean, you see it in football all the time. The D coordinator gets the head coach job. He's not a head coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of the time they're not. You're a great D coordinator because you're not used to managing media, alumni, parents, coaching staff, strength staff, equipment staff, academic staff,
recruiting,
administrators.
For the love of
God. Recruiting, high school coaches.
Yeah.
You're used to being on the film board, watching film every day and putting together a plan and talking to 11 guys, 22 if you're going too deep, 33, 3 deep, right? So I think the Peter Principle, so my advice to that, Zach, the answer would be, and there's two ways you can do this. And I talk about this in my book a little bit, The Secret Sauce, but I would recommend either A, volunteer to lead an internship program. Maybe you can't do that. Where I cut my teeth, again, going back to your biggest failures, I led summer camps. And dude, you want to learn to manage and lead people? Go run a summer camp and get a parent mad at you because you didn't run a camp good for their little Johnny. And they're in your grill piece blowing you up because you didn't organize it right.
Right.
And then you've got coaches that are coming in working for you that are down on 6th Street that are supposed to be watching the kids.
Yeah.
And you got bus drivers backing over cars in the parking lot, dealing with dorm attendants that don't handle the toilets. That's how you learn to lead and be a director, is you go do all that, not X's and O's on the floor.
Yeah.
You learn that stuff first. So you either do that through an internship, or you go volunteer at a nonprofit, or you run summer camps, start getting that.
So you need to be in positions to lead not only your team, but like manage people.
So it's right. Here's the thing. Management, right, is way different than leadership, right? Management is all about doing things right. But leadership is doing the right things. There's a big difference. Mm-hmm. So management is just doing day to day, like running the shop, right? You've got it, but as a leader, you've got to be a good manager and a good leader. You got to cast vision.
Yeah.
You got to see what's coming at you. You got to anticipate problems. Then you got to be able to sit down and be patient with people and systems and structure.
That's probably one of my top 3 favorite quotes I've heard on this show.
That's good. Leadership management.
The difference between leadership and management.
Yeah.
Because I feel like most people think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not.
So best picture on this I've ever gotten, it's like a bicycle. The back wheel is management. It's a lot of work. You're pushing the pedals. It's just going straight though. It's the engine. You got to be a good manager. But the front wheel is leadership. That's vision. Mm-hmm. That's going to determine your path. If you avoid problems. So that front wheel steers the bike. The back wheel drives it. Management and leadership have to work simultaneous.
With once again, you being a director, you've done a lot of interviews.
Yeah.
What are some big advice you have for young, people just graduated, like interview prep, where they should apply, how they should present themselves? What makes a great candidate for you?
Number one thing, I call it your digital handshake. Everything you do online, Instagram, Twitter. Again, I'm saying this, we're not supposed to look at that. I'm not saying that we do, but I'm saying this. Typically in our profession, and you guys know this, you usually know people before you actually meet them.
Yep.
So reputation's like a tree shadow, right? Sometimes it precedes you, right? And you see the shadow first, and then the tree second. Sometimes it comes behind, right? Sometimes you meet the person and then you learn about the reputation. So it's different. And so oftentimes a reputation of somebody, you've met people that maybe their reputation wasn't great. You meet them like, wait a minute, you're an awesome person.
Yeah. What's everyone talking about?
But then you've met awesome people that you thought were great, but then their reputation is like not that great.
Yep.
After you kind of like, wait, I didn't have the experience with them.
Right.
So you get the point. But so I would say digital handshake, everything from email, if you're on LinkedIn, to when you start kind of dialoguing with a candidate, texting.
Mm-hmm.
So all that stuff is kind of like you're getting an impression of this person before you even meet them face to face on Zoom, right? I mean, I can tell you right now, Zoom interviews, if you get on a Zoom interview and you're kind of like half cocked, meaning you're in a window and you got
Look like it was a last second thing.
yeah, you spun off.
Disheveled.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on, coach? Just came out from this last group. I'm like, yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I want you working here.
Yeah.
And so those small impressions add up, because when you get to an interview process, you're usually in a small little group of company of 4 or 5 people, maybe more. And so little things help you stand out. So your background in your Zoom, are you in the center of that picture when you're being interviewed? Do you have a suit on?
Mm-hmm. See, suit's key.
That attention for 30 minutes, 40 minutes of that interview, that impression is huge. You never get a second chance.
Right.
And when you get off that call, you're dialoguing like, what'd you think? Man, I really like the way they present themselves, the way they talk. They were very clear. Here's another one for you, Zach. Don't over answer a question. If you start rambling on a question, you just tell me you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be so short that I'm not clear what you just said. When you're rambling, you lost me, and now I'm confused. Like, you're talking out of the side of your head.
Yep.
And so there's an art to answering questions of like, I want to use enough information and be very sufficient and efficient with my detail of explaining that, but I don't want to talk too much so that you can ask me more questions.
Right.
When a candidate finally gets on campus, what are things you look for as far as how they carry themselves, all these different things?
I think it comes down to, we're going to start talking, we're going to delve in a little bit of culture fit, and every director has different lens. For me, it's, I'm a dad, I'm married, I've got a family life, so I'm looking for a little bit more balance. And I feel like with our coaches, the way I like to run our shop, I want you to have a life outside of your career. We need to do our job at a high level, but I feel like from, again, my experience of, I watched Doc go through a really bad divorce at Colorado when I was a young coach, and I saw how that hurt his family. So I grew up with that too. So I knew as a leader, it's going to be very and vitally important for me, for our staff, to have a life outside of their job. If you got a good life outside of here, you'll be a better coach. And so I'm interviewing you like, hey, what's going on? I want to go talk programming and motivation and coaching, but I want to know, like, what are you doing outside of here? Because to me, it's like always, it's the 3 C's, right? You got to be competent. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. When you get on campus, I want to see the other 2 C's. Chemistry. Does our staff kind of mesh well with you? Is there good chemistry there? But then I also want to know, are you a person of high character? Mm-hmm. And so I want to know kind of what's going on. I don't need to know your personal life, but I need to know that you've got a life outside of here, but you're not doing nothing crazy, right? So those are the 3 C's I look for when we get somebody on campus.
Like that.
So I've got a few questions here for you. We put up a question box prior to the show, and this one jumped out at me. The question is, how do you try to instill a better training culture when it's not a top priority of the sport coach? And I'd like to twist that question a little bit and just say, what is the performance side of things, the strength coach? What role do you see them playing in building and developing a culture? And how do you transmit that to the athletes, regardless of what's happening at other
two
coaching
questions
positions?
here, right? Let's go back to that first one. So if a coach isn't really bought in, I have dealt with that. It is not fun. I don't enjoy it. I've done a couple of things with that. I'll never forget, again, mistakes. This is a terrible one. This is a personal mistake. I'll never forget, Zack, Texas, one of our coaches, one of our star athletes, you know, she missed a workout, came late, and I chewed her. I didn't check in with the head coach yet. So she went and talked to the head coach. Well, me and the head coach had a nice meeting. And in this meeting, she asked me this question: how much percentage do you think your program makes a difference for our program?
Whoa.
And I was just like,
whoa.
I mean, I was a young coach. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like,
100%.
we make the difference. Like, I am the difference maker. I did not say that.
Right, of course.
But in my mind, I'm like, I mean, I don't know, coach, like 50%. She goes, no, it's probably about a 2-3% difference. And I was just like, but I knew where I stood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was a mistake on me of how I handled that. And I've learned different today. So your number one job and priority as a coach now, you've got to get the head coach to buy into you. Not your system, it goes back to sales. We talked about this earlier, right? You've got to get that person to buy into you as a coach, a human being. And there's different ways. They may not like you at first. I mean, coach, we can relate, I think, on some of this stuff.
Sure.
But you may have to get the kids to buy into you first, and then the coach comes second. There's all paths don't lead to Rome. I mean, there's many paths that lead to Rome, sorry. So there's some different tactics and approaches on that. Football, we had to, a lot of times you had to get the athlete to buy into you, and then the position coach and the head coach would see the buy-in, and now that gave you credibility, right? Because there's always somebody out there doing something different. There's always the new bell and whistle that they need to bring in. We're not doing that here, so we're going to bring them in and do that, right? And so I think it starts with you got to find a way to build credibility and trust with that head coach. And again, that may be through the athlete. That may be, I've seen it where we brought in consultants and they speak highly of me. So you may have to borrow and leverage influence too. Way different tactics and strategies on this. I'm not saying, I don't think one size fits all, but you do have to start with that. And you may have to, I think ground zero on this is they may have you do stuff that you don't believe in and agree with. You just got to do it.
Yeah.
And just show up. One of my favorite quotes is by Woody Allen. It said 80% of success in life is just showing up.
Yeah. And
what I've learned, the bigger mistakes I've made is when a coach attacks my program and doesn't like it, I get really offended, take it personal, and now there's tension between me and the coach.
Yeah, and resentful.
And it's not, I'm gonna tell you what, it didn't go well for me.
Yeah, it never does.
It's fine for them, but it did not go well for me. And so what I've learned, there's two things. You either got to change a sport you're training with, or you've got to go their route first for about 1.5 years, 2 years. It's a long road, and doing it their way, showing them, and then you build rapport and trust with them over time. They start to give you keys to the kingdom. I'll give you this is a true story. When I learned this early at Colorado, Seal Berry was the head women's basketball coach. I don't know if you ever met Seal. She don't play. She didn't speak to you really. She's a Hall of Fame coach. She was the winningest coach at Colorado. This was 1996, 97. She took the girls out of the weight room because she did not like what we're doing.
Wow.
So she started running it. And guess what they were doing? They were doing track workouts, long endurance, because they need to be in shape.
Right.
We were having girls with compartment syndrome. All this stuff. Anyway.
Yeah.
My boss told me, he gave me this assignment. He goes, here's what you're going to do. Wherever they go, that's your team. You're not going to train them. You're just going to show up where they're at. So Z, I was showing up in the dark in Boulder, these random spots at 5:45. And I'm not coaching them.
Yeah.
I'm just there. I'm the cheerleader. I'm cheering them. I'm high-fiving them. That's all I'm doing. Yep. For 6 weeks, that's all I did. I ended up, we went on a long run on the Boulder bike path. I'm like, I'm 260 still at the time. I'm not an endurance guy. But I'm trying to win this coach over and do what my boss says. So I'm kind of checking 2 boxes. I go on this 3-mile run. The next day I can barely walk, dude. After 6 weeks, Sealberry hadn't even spoken to me most of that time. She literally walks up, but the kids were buying into me.
Yeah.
And she saw it. She walks up to me. She goes, next week, you got him. I want to see what you can do with him. And I was just like, what? I ain't never trained women's basketball. And for the next 6 weeks, it went so well. She goes, I want to hire you full time for just us. And you're going to be at practice.
Oh, because you showed up.
Coach. And but at that point, I had the offer to come here, so I bounced.
Yeah.
But again, you got to find a way to get to this coach. And that may be keeping your mouth shut, asking questions, doing stuff that you don't believe in, not getting athletes in a risky spot. I'm not saying that. But it takes time.
Well, you know what I'm hearing in that answer? A principle is humility.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm hearing from, and all of that is kind of, putting your personal opinions and beliefs on the back burner for a little bit and doing up and showing up.
My favorite quote I don't know if you've heard this on humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less.
Yeah.
So when you can kind of check your ego and come into a situation, a team, and go, I'm going to do whatever's best for the team. And it may be stuff I do not agree with at first, but I'm going to get in here, I'm going to build credibility, earn my stripes, build trust. And when the time comes, I'll start to input and change the dynamics here. But you got to be patient with it.
I think it's the hardest thing is being patient, especially when you're a young coach. Like you want to come out of the gates and everyone like you, coach likes you, having success, and it very rarely happens. To
me, so humility, because I've studied this a lot because of our profession, oftentimes meekness has always been kind of chained with weakness. But when you study meekness, if you look at the original text in that was the word that they used to describe war horses. And a meek war horse was a horse when its rider got on it, he could turn it left or right because it would obey and do what it was told. And if you pulled back, it would stop. If you kicked the heels into it, it would take off. It would save his life. And so you've got to be more meek coming into these situations than you are being the guru.
Right.
Questions, listen, use social intelligence, emotional intelligence of how when you say something that coach is not bought into you yet, you can tell they still have their shield up. It's not time for that, right? And so it takes more meekness going in those to be successful than anything.
It's hard to fight fire with fire.
Yeah, they're going to win. They're going to win every time.
Power,
they're going to. You're going to be gone.
Yeah,
and the next person.
You'll be interviewing with Donnie Maib.
if you answer my text,
right? That's right.
Right.
Yeah, sit up straight in that interview now.
Right. Love it.
Do you have any good Q&As?
Yeah, actually I do. How has your training philosophy changed over the years? So let's go back with this.
Yeah.
When you were young and very like everyone has to fit into my square program, or what is it, round hole, Brent?
Square peg, round hole.
Yes, that.
Yeah.
How have you changed since then? What's been your biggest takeaway?
It's adjusted. I would say number one, the things that used to really bother me don't bother me. So I think that's just part of, being seasoned, knowing like, it's kind of like that old Viking adage, if you ever heard that, like Vikings only fight battles they know that there will be spoil. And so where's the pot of gold?
Is this worth me?
I love that so much.
Is this really going to get me anything besides me being stressed out and drugged through the mud? No, so I'm not fighting it.
Sounds like good relationship advice too.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to get my pants in the water about this. So I think that's number one. And then number two, this is just me, Zach, and I'm kind of going back a little bit to our first conversation. I realized depending on the sport, the number, the level of recruit we bring in, my programming just don't make that big of a difference. It's more about what's our team culture? What can I do with my programming and with my relationship and rapport with those kids make a difference in them being tougher on the court, more connected as a team, and bought into the culture. If I can unlock that, our athletes are so good. I'm not saying my training, I'm not trying to
Fast
and my training doesn't
yeah.
make it. But I've just learned that because what's happening is we're getting less and less time with these athletes. And so here's kind of the answer. It's like whack-a-mole. You ever play that game?
Mm-hmm.
You just start whacking these hits pop up.
Tim's really good at it.
Yeah. You can't hit every head.
Right.
What's going to change and make this team better for each season? Hit those 2 hits. Let the other ones go.
Yeah.
And chase that. And it may be different for all you guys, but I'm chasing that, right? It's the Pareto principle. You ever heard that?
Mm-mm.
So you can apply this to any business in life. They call it the 80-20 rule. 80% of your results come from 20% of your program.
Yeah.
I program the same way. Because you know this, Zach. You may be in there training, sorry, we ran an hour over, you got 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So if I got 4 exercises, that top exercise better be I'm gonna shoot my shot with that first one.
That's right. Yeah.
And if I got 10 minutes, if we get 10 minutes for the next 2 weeks, that first exercise better give me 80% of my return.
Yeah.
And so it's Pareto principle. 80% of your business comes from 20% of your clients, right? 80% of your training program comes from the top 20% of what you put on that sheet. And so if you go into that lens and go, man, time is short. I don't, my programming has got to be tight, right? I mean, I've learned this even like we get into championship season. Our practices get shorter and our lifts get to be about 15, 20 minutes. I see you put grease on the wheels. My sheets get a lot shorter, but the sets get a lot longer. I'm not chasing a lot. It's like, I always say it like, it's just like, am I going to eat at Cane's or Cheesecake Factory?
Yeah.
At Cane's, I got about 3 or 4 options. But Cheesecake, you got 150 options.
Just take a while to
So
read
I'm
that
gonna
menu.
shop at Cane's.
Yeah, we're going to Cane's, baby.
Yeah.
I got one good one. This is actually just for me because so many people ask me to recommend books, but I'm not as big of an avid reader as you.
Yeah.
What are your top 3 books that can't be training related?
Nice.
Ooh, see, I read a lot, so you're gonna push me
I know,
on this
it's
one.
tough.
Top 3?
Top 3. Maybe let's go 3 books you would give to Donnie Maib that just graduated college, and then 3 books 10 years into your career.
One of my favorite books, I found this author randomly. His name is Donald T. Phillips. And he wrote a book. He's written several books, but this book is called Lincoln on Leadership. And it's a short read, but it is chock full of wisdom. In that book, he talks about Abraham Lincoln would not stop searching until he found his general. I think it was General Lee. He would try as a leader of his army, didn't work. He'd fire him. He kept searching until he found his leader. And the timing of the book for me. Anyway, there's just so much wisdom in there you can learn from what Lincoln did. He's written a bunch of books. Martin Luther King Jr. on leadership. Martin Luther King Jr. he always walked slowly through the halls. He was never in a hurry. And he would talk about in that book how Martin Luther King Jr., they would have these big protests. Dude, he would take the people that were in these protests and he would go he would practice sit-ins and he would hire people to come in and heckle these people doing the sit-ins. They'd come in, they'd berate them, they'd say horrible things, and they would practice that before they actually went out in the public and actually did it. So they were prepared and poised and ready before they launched big initiatives. And so you'll learn just incredible little tips and tricks like that. So I would think Lincoln on Leadership would be one. The other one that is, these are all leadership books. The one I really love, and this is a thicker Bible. It's really a Bible on leadership, but it's called The Leadership Challenge by Kuz and Posner, I think's their name. The 2 guys that wrote it. All research-based. But they do stuff in there like, they did research on military. And what they did was, it was a blind study. They would come up with these group of guys and they go, hey, we're going to go for a long march. And for that first one, they wouldn't tell them how far they was going. They would just march. And the longer they went, the more guys wanted to quit because they didn't know how far they were going, even though they were only like 1.5 miles away from the end.
Right.
So dudes would bail out because they were not telling them where we're going. And they took the same group and did the same thing with them and told them how, and they would give them updates as they were going. And they went a lot further in their journey, in their commitment level, because there was vision and communication in leadership. And so they talk about stuff like that in that book. And I say the third book, which is, again, I've got more than this, but the third one would be Necessary Endings by Henry Cloud. Phenomenal book for anything in life. So gist of this book is a rose gardener. Never have studied this, never want to study it, but you'll get the point. So the rose bush is the one plant on the planet that the root system is real shallow. So it doesn't have enough deep roots to get enough water to sustain the bulbs. It can actually produce more bulbs than the root system can sustain with water. So the rose gardener has to make a decision, look at the rose bush, and like which bulbs need to be cut off so that we can have beautiful bulbs in a flourishing plant. And so our life, the premise of this book is we're great at starting things in our life. We're really bad at ending things. And there's going to be things in your life, in my life, that we need to know when to kill and to cut off so that what's out there can start blooming and blossoming and flourish in your life because it's taken away from it. So those are 3 recommendations.
Solid.
And the secret sauce.
Of course.
Secret sauce.
Of
course, that's the best. That's the best one.
My favorite
It's
of all
actually
time.
a culmination of all of those things.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
Guys, I can't believe we're already coming up on time here, but to wrap things up, Donnie, we've got some segments here.
Let's go. Yeah.
Okay. And historically, Zack and I have been atrocious at doing the ad reads associated with these segments. So we ask you and everyone listening,
Be patient.
just be patient with us, you know? So this first segment is called 3 Things. This is brought to you by Squat Wedgies. It's a squat wedge. It's fantastic. Use code CoachEmUp15 for 15% off at discount. Use the code. Okay, so what are 3 things that you would give a young coach? Let's say they've just graduated.
Okay.
What are 3 pieces of advice you would give them to have the best career they could possibly have?
Well, let's start with the basics. Pursue opportunity over money. For example, if you could get close to like a Zack or somebody and you're not getting paid, but you take, like the reason I came to Texas, I had a 44,000 or 18. You always take opportunity over money, especially early on.
Yeah.
So I would say number 1, if you could get next to like whether it's a Michael Boyle or somebody like that, or somebody who's really been very successful in the field, like take an opportunity, spend the money, bite the bullet, work the extra job, Andrea Hootie, get next to that person and just drink from that faucet.
Yeah.
So that would be 1. 2 would be start networking. Once you get that job, who are the top people? So I'll tell you, this is how I took martial arts for a long time. I could never get close to my instructor because he was so busy. But guess what? His top belts, I could get close to them. Mm-hmm. So I started getting close to them, and I said, "Hey, come, let's grab a burger, And I started spending time with those kind of next level practitioners. And next thing you know, I'm moving faster than everybody else.
Yeah.
Like I'm learning more, I'm changing my mindset because I'm spending time around his top students. So maybe you can't get close and network with the director, but who's the top assistants? Mm-hmm. And so and again, I would say, reach out to people. Can I stop by? Can I take you to lunch? Can I grab you a cup of coffee? And just spend time with them on the phone. And so I think the more you can begin to network and learn from people and ask questions will be huge. And I think thirdly, you're going to make a bunch of mistakes as a young coach. And here's what I would say to that. There's a little bit of a thought to this, and I'm going to see if I get it right. Experience is not the best teacher. Reflected or evaluated experience is. When you make a mistake, you're going to. It's 100%, as we say in Louisiana, guarantee. You're going to make a mistake. What I didn't learn, I didn't set back, pull back. Like, let me evaluate. Let me go, hey, Zack, how can I do that better next time? Tim, what did you see in that? Do a little autopsy on that.
Yeah.
Don't take it personal. Go back, apologize for it, personally own it. Don't deflect and get sensitive. So hard to do. What else do you see in there I need to work on? Try it again. Fall down. Get feedback. Repeat the process, right? Sometimes you win and sometimes you learn.
Yeah.
The worst thing I see today with younger coaches, they make a mistake and they run from it. They don't learn from it. Hardest lesson I ever learned at Texas was in 2000. I got caught I could have got fired on it. I was talking bad about some stuff we were doing in the program. Got back to Coach Brown. I went to him, was honest, ate dirt, apologized, and for the next 2 years, I had to grow up and mature and dig myself out of a hole I put myself in. I could have easily went and got another job and ran from it, but I stayed in the hole, was humble, learned from it, earned my stripes, built my trust back, and got promoted several years later. Don't run from it, learn from it.
Ooh.
God, I love it.
Clip it.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
All right, our next segment is brought to you by Plyomat, the best plyomat in the world.
Yeah, it's true.
Use code CoachEmUp5 at checkout.
I love it.
You nailed it. Yeah, you did. That was
got
great.
it.
Learn from it. I was running from these. Now I'm learning from
You're
it.
learning
Yes.
from it. He's getting coached up.
That's right.
Yeah. He gets it.
Coach him up.
So our next is rant and rave. So let's pick something in the field that you can just rant about. I'm sure there's a million things, but let's keep it to one or two. And then also a big rave for what you really like that's going on in the field right now.
The thing that I rant, let's see. I'm trying to think, Zach. I've got several here. I'm trying to think if I want to be very forthcoming. I think at the end of the day, we still are having to fight for our jobs. And sometimes it gets a little old. Meaning, here's what I mean. No, we're really good at what we do, dude. We know what we're doing. I've done this for a long time. And it still is baffling to me the level of just people don't know that they don't know.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you keep fighting the same battles. And it kind of goes back to a little bit my earlier answer is like, you kind of learn when to be quiet, but there's some things you got to fight. So I think there's times my biggest rant is just like dealing with whether it's an administrator or even a sport coach that is clueless to what we're trying to accomplish in the weight room and really what the weight room is used for. So I think that one still kind of gets me fired up sometimes.
Totally agree with that. It's tough.
It's baffling.
Being evaluated on a job that most people don't actually know what the job
I read
is.
a book several years ago. So just a real quick little pivot on that. It gave me a lot of peace. And it actually said the most elite sport coaches actually know what you're doing in the weight room and understand periodization. The least elite ones have no clue. So I was like, hey, at least, I understand now what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
And so it gives me a better lens so I'm not as frustrated. But that still kind of gets me.
And then a rave.
I think to back that, I love where it's going. I'm loving that. I mean, look at what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
This is pretty cool.
To me, we've come so far of branding, telling your story, helping people, creating opportunities. This part of our job is like, I could not rave enough about it, of getting in different spaces. And I love it. You got a career pivot, reinvent yourself. I really believe we'll get to a place where we'll see more and more coaches doing, running in different lanes. Mm-hmm. Whether it's maybe you're working for a big, maybe what we've branded and done enough communication like this. You're working for a big company and you're running something like this. It's giving you a new opportunity.
Yep.
Maybe I think at some point, I've kind of heard a little bit of this. I think they're going to start having more, like what they call culture coaches, that they're just hiring people that they just come and evaluate culture. Because if you don't know how to manage and kind of foster healthy cultures, then that's where a lot of your heartache comes from. So my rave is there's just more and more opportunities. The word's getting out. We're making more headway that way. And just, I love seeing that.
I love it too.
This is our last segment. Unsolicited, solicited advice. So an example might be you're walking through the halls at Texas, and there's an intern, and they're walking past you, and they may be a little bit nervous. They're walking past you. They're like, this guy could get me kicked out of here quick. And you stop them because you can, and you lean over and you just whisper some advice to them, and then you just walk away. You don't even give them time to respond. What might that advice be? And it could be on life or training.
First one would be, for the next month, don't say a word. Just do your job and watch.
I love it.
That's good.
And then it starts
For the next, like, a
effective
month.
immediately
Yeah.
as
Like,
Donnie
don't say
walks
a word.
away.
Yeah.
Just do your job. I don't know. I don't need to know how many books you read. I don't care how many courses you've taken. I really don't care. Just watch and don't say a word and work.
I love that. That's perfect.
That might be the most precise answer we've
like
received
that.
on that segment so
I
far.
like that.
Donnie, dude, thank you so much.
Oh, thank
for
you.
coming. It's been so much fun, man.
Oh, this is a blast. Yeah, I love this stuff.
Where I would love to hear you talk about the book, where people can find it, a little bit on it, and then anywhere else people can find you and reach out to you and connect with you.
No, yeah. Thank you guys, Zach and Tim. It's been a pleasure.
Of course.
So much fun. Book is easy. Just find on Amazon. If you just get on Amazon and type in The Secret Sauce of Leadership, it should pop up pretty quick. Again, that one's on there. And then the follow-up I think we're going to do a pre-release on it. What do you call it? Pre-order? Mm-hmm. We'll do that sometime, probably in October. But that'll be the 2 buckets of leadership. So that'll come out. And then just if you want to locate me, I'm not super quick, but Instagram's probably the easiest, at Donnie Maib. I'll DM there some. So that's probably the quickest if you want to hit me up.
Thanks for coming on, Don. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Donnie,
My pleasure.
thank you. Everybody, thank you for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.